Now, never underestimate how fanatic a sports fan can be. We saw 1 month ago a teacher punching a 12-year-old because he criticized his NFL team. Now, that teacher was fired immediately, but no criminal charges were brought against him for some time. Now we understand that criminal charges are being pursued against him. But look at this story that broke today. This is parents who are stunned that the union is seeking a $10,000 severance for their son who was molested sexually by that teacher. But the union is pushing back on this. The Michigan Education Association is going to arbitration to try to force the West Branch Rose City School District to pay a former teacher convicted of molesting a student a $10,000 severance buyout. He pled guilty to first-degree sexual misconduct. He was arrested and charged with sexual conduct in 2012. And what we see from this is that teachers' unions, like police unions, even though they were brought in to help people, keep them from getting exploited, now what they're doing is they're defending criminals. We see this happening over and over again with the police. We see it now happening with teachers, that even when they behave criminally, even if they are fired, they're still coming back and getting massive pensions, massive compensation for these people who were fired for criminal acts. Now, look at how long it took for this Homeland Security employee to be fired. 4 months. In an article by Paul Joseph Watson, Homeland Security employee who called for mass murder of whites is finally fired. A Homeland Security employee who called for the mass murder of white people has finally been fired over 4 months after it first emerged that he was running a website which advocated a genocidal race war. And it was reported that everybody in the office was afraid of him, and they were worried that he would come in with a gun someday and go postal, you know, that other federal agency besides Homeland. And he had been making $115,000 a year. This is a position that he'd had since 2009. And Paul Joseph Watson points out in his commentary here, he says, it's ironic that while the Department of Homeland Security circulates training guidelines and material that instruct their employees to treat liberty lovers and constitutionalists as terrorists, actual domestic extremists can stay in their jobs with the agency for years while publicly spewing violent racial hatred. And so the question is, do they really not know who this guy is? Are they really that incompetent, or are they okay with it? Take a look at who Barack Obama has just hired. Kurt Nimmo points out that Obama has nominated an Israeli bankster as a Federal Reserve vice chair. Yeah, they're playing musical chairs in the kingdom of the banksters. He says, Zambian American Israeli economist Stanley Fisher left Citibank to head up Israel's central bank. So this is a guy who's the former head of the Israeli central bank, also the former, also part of the IMF and a chief economist at the World Bank. And now he's going to be the vice chair at the Federal Reserve. But listen to his comment about this. He says, without the Fed, this is what Stanley Fisher said, without the Fed, we'd have had a much deeper recession. Without the extraordinary things that the Fed has done, the economy would be in much worse shape today, and we need to remember that. Well, let's remember that the Fed, through inflation, has destroyed 99% of the value of the dollar over the last 100 years, most of that happening in just the last few decades. Let's also remember that even though the Fed was brought in to stop the business cycle, we had the Great Depression after the Fed was brought in. Nothing that they did before, during, or after the Great Depression helped that, and nothing that they have done during this economic times has helped us either. Now, speaking of questionable hires, we see somebody at the Mandela funeral that was translating for the funeral in sign language, and we're going to have Leanne McAdoo interview a deaf educator, and we're going to ask him questions like, how did this guy get there? What does it take to be an interpreter, a deaf interpreter at an event like this? So stay tuned. That'll be our interview for today. We'll be right back after this short break.
Alex Jones here to tell you about how you can help spread liberty worldwide while also enjoying what I have found to be the best tasting 100% organic coffee on the planet. For more than a decade, my favorite coffee has come from the high mountains of southern Mexico, where the Chiapas farmers grow their unique shade-grown Arabica beans. We have now managed to secure these sought-after beans in a highly customized blend. Discover and try a bag of the Patriot Blend 100% organic coffee at InfoWarsLife.com. This coffee gives gives you a long, smooth pick-me-up for hours without the headaches and heartburn that so many other coffees give me personally. Hands down, this is my favorite coffee, and it's taken us years to secure connections directly to the Chiapas Mexican farmers. Drop by the site today, order a bag or two, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Available in original or with our immune support infusion blend. You will be supporting a free press, all the while enjoying a truly great tasting cup of my favorite coffee. Available at InfoWarsLife.com.